This is a Fonzie Studio podcast. Welcome to Tales from the First Nations. I'm Jay Idle, and every week I'll share with you a tale and ancient wisdom of the native tribes of North America. I'll be joined by my cats, Dawa and Fonzie, who will undoubtedly make their presence known at some point, so I might as well just list them as co-hosts. We hope you'll enjoy the tales and wisdom, raise your vibration, and enrich your life with us every week. Welcome, friends. Welcome to the 26th episode of Tales from the First Nations. I'm your host, Jay Idle. And I've mentioned before that I love trees, right? Oh yeah. Well, we've done an episode on the maple tree and the pine trees and the cedar trees, and now I feel we need another tree. So I was looking outside my window, and just right over there, can you see right there? No, a little to the left. Yes, right there. There's a great big cluster of birch trees. And as I was looking at them, I thought, you know what? I think that should be our next tree. So, hello, birch tree. Welcome to the spotlight. Birch trees have a very long history and thus have a great significance to many different cultures around the world. They're often associated with new beginnings, renewal, and purification. Their ability to thrive in challenging environments and quickly regrow after being cut down, it symbolizes resilience and regeneration. They're pioneers in reforestation and are often the first to grow in cleared or barren land. This makes them auspicious symbols for the start of new ventures. Now, through different traditions, the white bark of the birch tree symbolizes purity and cleanliness. They're believed to offer protection against evil spirits and negative energies. In some traditions, birch bark and branches are used in purification ceremonies and rituals to create a protective barrier. Birch bark and leaves have also been used in traditional medicine for their healing properties. Spiritually, the tree is thought to aid in emotional healing and provide comfort in times of stress and turmoil. In the Celtic tradition, the birch tree is considered a tree of wisdom and learning, often connected with ancient knowledge and folklore. Also in Celtic mythology, the birch tree is sacred and often associated with the festival of Samhain, which marks the beginning of the dark half of the year. Birch wands are used by druids in their rituals, and in Scandinavian folklore, the birch tree is considered a tree of life and fertility. It's often associated with the goddess Freya, who is linked to love, beauty, and fertility. Now, back here, among our Native American friends, the birch tree is valued for its practical uses and spiritual significance. Birch bark is used to make canoes, containers, and shelters, symbolizing the tree's role in supporting life and providing for the community. They also found long ago that storing food in a basket made of birch bark allowed the food to last longer. How cool is that? So today, we're going to look at a story from the Ojibwe legend. In researching stories for this podcast, I often find multiple versions of a story, so I pick the one that has the most details in order to share it with you. In this case, however, I found two stories that were extremely different. There was nothing in common between them except the character involved. So I decided to share both. So congratulations, you get two stories today. The Ojibwe people always had stories to tell that had a moral, and the main character who was always in these stories was Nanabojo. We've talked about him before, and he is a very interesting fellow. But the issue with telling a story about him, according to this, is you cannot tell a story about him in spring, summer, or fall. You can only do it when there's snow on the ground. Otherwise, it's said that a frog will be in your bed. You can put down a cedar and ask to tell the story, and then nothing will happen to you or your bed. But this is what I'm told by the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh, who has shared this story with me. Now, as I'm recording this, I'm looking out the window. It is early January, and there's a great deal of snow on the ground, so I have no risk of a frog entering my bed. Now, if you look out the window and you don't see snow, then perhaps you should check your bed when you get home. just to be on the safe side. This is the story about how the birch bark got its burns. Now, often stories have different morals or different explanations, so this one may be somewhat different from others that you have heard, but I like it. It was wintertime, and Nanabojo's grandmother called him to her. "Nanabojo," she called, "come here. It's cold and we have no fire for warmth or to cook and prepare our food. I ask you to go to find the fire that Thunderbird has in the west." "Grandmother," Nanabojo replied, "I will go and look for the great Thunderbird for you." He disguised himself as a little rabbit and he headed off to the west looking for the fire. When Nanabojo finally reached Thunderbird's home, he asked, "Please, share the warmth inside your home. I'm cold and lost. I will only stay a little while, for I must be on my way." The Thunderbird agreed and allowed Nanabojo to enter his home. Once he got inside, Nanabojo saw the fire and waited until Thunderbird looked away. Then Nanabojo quickly rolled in the fire and took off running towards his home with the fire on his back. Thunderbird flew behind Nanabojo, throwing lightning flashes at him. Nanabojo grew tired and yelled for someone to help. "Help me!" he cried. When the birch tree saw him, he spoke. "Come, hide beside me. My brother and I will protect you." The little rabbit hid beneath the tree while the Thunderbird flashed and thundered, angry that Nanabojo had stolen the fire. The lightning bolts missed Nanabojo every time, but they hit the poor little birch tree, and dark burn marks scarred the white bark of the tree. And that is why the birch tree now has burn marks on its back. Now, I read multiple variations of that story. In this one, he sought fire for his grandmother. In others, he sought feathers from the Thunderbird's children for his arrows so he could go hunting. But this next version of the story comes from the Singing Scoutmaster. And this story, it's the birch tree who actually plays the trick on Nanabojo. One day, Nanabojo, the great trickster and guardian of the land, was wandering through the woods. He noticed that all the animals, fox, squirrel, beaver, and bear, they were all very busy gathering food and building their homes in preparation for the harsh winter. Feeling lazy and playful, Nanabojo decided to distract them from their work. "Why do you work so hard?" he called out, leaning against a tree. "Come and play with me instead. There's plenty of time to prepare later." The animals shook their heads. Fox lifted his head from digging his den and said, "We cannot play, Nanabojo. Winter is coming, and if we do not store food and build our shelters, we will go hungry and freeze when the snow falls." "We must respect the season and be ready," Beaver added as he gnawed through a tree branch to build his dam. Seeing that the animals were determined to continue working, Nanabojo shrugged. "If you won't play, then I'll take a nap instead." He wandered through the forest until he found a tall, slender birch tree. Climbing to the very top, he stretched out on a branch, closed his eyes, intending to nap away the rest of the afternoon. But as soon as he fell asleep, a strong wind began to blow. The birch tree swayed under Nanabojo's weight, and the branch creaked ominously. Before he knew it, the branch snapped, sending Nanabojo tumbling down to the ground with a loud thud. Furious, Nanabojo jumped to his feet and kicked the birch tree with all his might. "You're supposed to support me," he shouted, his pride stinging more than his bruises. But the birch tree only stood silently, its bark rustling softly in the breeze. Nanabojo kicked again, but this time his foot got caught in the soft, papery bark of the birch tree. He yanked and pulled, but the more he struggled, the deeper his foot became tangled. He kicked with his other foot, but that one got stuck too. The birch bark began to peel away, wrapping around his legs and arms like ribbons. The harder Nanabojo fought, the more he became trapped until he was completely bound by the birch's bark. With one final burst of strength, Nanabojo managed to free himself, but not without losing strips of his own fur in the process. Exhausted and disheveled, he stumbled back and glared at the tree. "You tricked me," he accused. The birch tree chuckled softly, its leaves rustling with amusement. "You should not be so lazy, Nanabojo. Even the Great Spirit cannot make winter wait for you. The seasons change, whether you are ready or not, and only those who prepare will thrive when the cold winds blow." Nanabojo hung his head, embarrassed by his own carelessness. He realized that the animals had been right to focus on their work, and that he had only wasted precious time by being lazy. Humbled, he nodded to the birch tree. "You've taught me a valuable lesson. From now on, I'll respect the wisdom of hard work and preparation." Nanabojo returned to the animals and helped them prepare for winter, gathering food and strengthening their shelters. Though they teased him gently about his struggle with the birch tree, they welcomed his help. Together, they made the village ready for the long, cold season ahead. To this day, the bark of the birch tree still bears the marks of Nanabojo's struggle. And the Ojibwe people honor the birch by using its bark for many things: canoes, baskets, and shelters. Whenever they peel the bark, they remember Nanabojo's lesson, that even the mighty trickster must respect the natural order and the need to prepare for the future. So the birch tree taught Nanabojo a valuable lesson, thus adding to its reputation as a tree of wisdom and a good ally on our journeys. Thank you for joining me on my journey and on this podcast. I wish you well and look forward to sharing another story with you next week. Go in peace, return in peace, and may you be well. For more great stories and legends, check out the Jaguar Bird channel on YouTube. There's a lot of great content on there. And of course, join me next week for another story here on Tales from the First Nations. I'm Jay Idle, and I will talk to you next time. Our first story today came from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh, and the second one came from thesingingscoutmaster.com. Music is provided by my dear friend Scott Brocklesby. It's him playing in the background right now. And our podcast image was provided by Mark Lawton. We will see you next time. All right, that's it. How'd we do, Dawa?
Awesome.
Phones? Excellent. Then I'll share it.